We are live for episode number 104 of Empire State of Baseball. We're live on Monday. It's 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time, September 30th, 2024. We're closing out September, and we're doing it on Instagram, X, and YouTube. And as always, we are powered by StreamYard. And today, folks, is a very, very exhilarating edition of Empire State of Baseball.
Rich, I got to cut you off here. We almost might have not been live tonight because we might have had the death of two Mets fans. But Francisco Lindor not only saved the Mets seasons, possibly saved these boys' lives. Because I couldn't imagine what would have happened to these fine young gentlemen hadn't Francisco Lindor hit, we were saying pre-show, possibly the biggest home run in the history of the New York Metropolitans.
He truly did. Did. Joe, Corey, how you guys feel?
I mean, it's almost exhausting what we went through today. I mean, what a ride game one was. Game two is what it is. The Braves kind of won because they were trying. The Mets literally swung at every pitch thrown to them. But when you talk about, when you go through the best games, not only of this year, but of in recent memory, this is going to be one of them. This is a win in your in scenario. The Mets, when you talk about a complete game and what a complete baseball game needs, what the perfect baseball game, you want great start and pitching, you want great offense, you want great moments. This game had everything. It had great start and pitching until the eighth inning. Then the starters get out, the bullpens come in. Then it had clutch moments, followed up by clutch moments from the opposite team, followed by another clutch moment. I mean, as far as roller coasters are concerned, and even the bottom of the ninth, the Braves got the win and run to the plate. So I as far as emotional roller coaster and the way this game played out, 12 runs in less like 2 innings or whatever it was, 4 lead changes. I mean, it's unbelievable. It might have taken a year or two off my life for sure, but I can't. For me, I can't think of a greater baseball game in the regular season, that is, in recent memory.
Yeah, it was a complete roller coaster of a day in what was a roller coaster of a season. I mean, the ups and downs for this team throughout. 0-5 start. They were actually 500 over. I think they were a game over 500 in the month of April. May completely tanked. I mean, you were 11 games under around Memorial Day. I mean, I thought that was insurmountable at that point. Season over. Jose Lopez throwing his glove into the stands. And then what happened? Instead of a June swoon, the Mets for the first time in their life got a June boom. You played pretty good baseball in the month of July, pretty good baseball in the month of August. And September, I mean, every series mattered in September. And the Mets, for the most part, got the job done. And they got the job done when it mattered most today. Now, unfortunately, because of work, and I had to host a meeting at the same time, I missed the first 3 innings. By the time I turned it on, the Mets had 2 guys on in the fourth. They were down 2-0, 1, 2, 3 after that. I was like, oh, here we go, same old crap. And the back and forth of emotions between tying it, then taking the lead, adding on with the Nimmo home run. And then the bottom of the 8th inning, not even half an inning later, they blow it. All right, now you're down 7-6. And then Lindor, I mean, listen, we talked about how important this man is. I know he had the injury and he missed most of the games over the last week and a half, 2 weeks. But a lot of our September shows this year were debating, is Lindor the NL MVP? And listen, because he missed that extra time down the end, I think that cooled off what would have been an improbable jump over Ohtani. But if there was ever a moment to show why he's the MVP for the New York Metropolitans, today is exactly it, because there's season on the line. Because I feel like the Mets would go into game 2 and lose that game. I mean, I think that's just an absolute crusher of a way to lose after retaking the lead. It just proved why he's the MVP of the Mets, and in my opinion, the MVP of the National League.
more on the Mets and Francisco Lindor and them clinching the number 6 seed, because there was still baseball we played after that exhilarating game 1. But we'll talk more about the Mets in a little bit on our Empire Express. But I want to shout out a few of our members of the chat here, showing a lot of love to our fellas Joe and Corey. But Jacob Petruzzi, as always, smash that like and sub button for the fellas on your way in. Always appreciate you, Jacob. Big Slick, damn it, boy. That's how I felt watching that Met game today. It was so hard to focus in on quarter end when that game was over my right shoulder. It was the craziest thing. Pars, again, echoing the same sentiments, hit that like and subscribe. Shout out to Pars. And here we go. Here's the congratulations from Joey Bag of Donuts. Congrats, Joe and Corey. Jack Esposito. Congrats, Corey and Joe. Chris Calith. Congrats, Joe and Corey. And Joey Bag of Donuts reminding us that first game was one of the best ones I've seen. Certainly the best game of 2024. Sierra Yeager, game 1 was awesome. Great way to end the regular season. Vibes around baseball are high. And yeah, so shout out to you guys. Thank you for joining us. And before we get into our Roback rundown, well, I just kind of spoiled the big sponsor there. But Thomas, let's talk about our friends over at Roback.
Let's talk about our friends at Roback as we are heading into October, into chilly season, into hoodie season. You see, I was doing the Roback polos all season long, but I've switched over to the hoodies because it's getting a little chilly at night now, and there's nothing going to keep you warmer and more comfortable than a nice soft Roback hoodie. I head over there; they have all different designs. Roback's also just constantly coming out with new products. They just released a new sweatshirt this week, a much more heavy duty one. If you're looking for something like that, new joggers out there. Still the polos, the Q-zips, women's stuff. They got bathing suits still out there for maybe doing a little tropical trip this winter. Head over to Roback.com. Use promo code TWASPL15 to get yourself 15% off your first order. And again, I'm going to keep banging the drum. Check out that last call section. A lot of really nice stuff in there. 30 to 40. I saw some stuff 20 to 30. I even saw some stuff 40% off. You stack the 15% code, and you really could save a lot of money on some quality products.
That's it. Roback, TWASPL15. You know the deal. Thank you, Thomas. And to touch off a Roback, let's get into our Roback rundown for tonight's big show here. On this episode 104, we have the Empire Express to kick things off. We're going to continue the popping of champagne for the New York Mets. And we'll touch on the Yankees, of course. They did clinch the American League East. They clinched number 1 seed in the American League, so we do have to touch on the Yankees. And after that, we're going to get into our final New York Strike Exchange for the season, our final bi-weekly, that is. So we'll wrap up the last 2 weeks of who are the best performers and who are the underperformers for both the Mets and the Yankees. Then we have our postseason predictions. We're going to get into each of our brackets with the postseason starting tomorrow. I can't believe it already. I got to tell you, today's episode was a production nightmare, to say the least. You had 2 games, and you still, even going into the second game when the Mets had a position locked, the Diamondbacks had a chance to still creep in, and I was like, I gotta throw the show on late, and that's why we started at the late time at 8:00, just to give ourselves a little bit more time with the production after it was all said.
I got a question, Joe. Are you like sipping on Jaeger right now? Because like that is way too dark to be just whiskey.
Jacob Petruzzi.
No, it's whiskey with some Coca-Cola.
Okay, I was gonna say, I was like, what a performance! We're just enjoying Jaeger out
celebrate.
Here.
Woodford Reserve to celebrate.
So you're wasting Woodford Reserve by mixing it with Coke. I will come over and gladly confiscate that from you.
You can't be drooling into the mic halfway through this.
Guess the graph's the game. Guess the graph's the game. Just wanted to throw that out there. All right, let's get back into it. The Empire Express. We'll talk about the New York Metropolitans once again. And there you see Diaz and Alvarez celebrating that game 1 victory. So the Mets do it. They lock down the wild card spot, number 6 seed overall for the National League, 89-73. Gotta hate just being an Arizona Diamondback today. Just you had no control over what today's outcome was going to be. You just had to sit there and watch. Every Diamondback fan became a Met fan once that epic game 1 was over. And
it's a long season. Just win one more of those 73 times you lost. Just win one of them, and it wouldn't have been an issue. So I kind of don't feel bad.
Mets do finish with the 230 batting average against, leading the National League in that category. Actually, one thing we're going to do over the next few weeks is go over some of the preseason predictions we had. And there's a couple in there that I have to shout out Joe and Corey immediately. I have to shout out Corey because he had the Mets finishing in top 10 in ERA. Now, I'm not sure. I gotta
In
go back.
baseball, there's no shot he got that. So don't even.
I think you're just on the cusp. But
I gotta
last I
check.
checked,
I'm actually. But he was at least top 10 in National League. And then number 2,
15 teams. And top 10 out of 15 is like. Seventh is average. It's an average ERA.
And I got to shout out Joe, because Joe legitimately had the Mets making the playoffs as wild card number 3. So I will have to give Joe his props there. So there you go. The Mets clinching wild card number. Thomas, let me hear from you. What's your thoughts on the Mets from the other side of the East River, man?
Good for you guys. That was a fun day of baseball. As Corey said so eloquently earlier. What a roller coaster of a season, and now it keeps rolling on. I think I know we're going to get into the playoff brackets soon, but I think it's going to be tough in Milwaukee. Just playing 2 games and burning out. I mean, Diaz is assumingly not available tomorrow, and it's only a 3-game series. So if you're, that's a tough game to win, and I don't know. But like right now, you celebrate to see if you have the chance to make the playoffs. Because again, as I've stated many times, the wild card round is not the playoffs. It doesn't count. So hopefully the Mets can get past that round to make the actual playoffs.
Listen, I mean, playing game, it's no longer a playing game. It's a series now. And you have a division winner playing in the wild card round. The Mets are going up against the Central Division winner.
Well, so I mean, let's be honest, Central is duty, so
it legitimizes the round because you're not the low division winner has to participate in it. But listen, I mean, as far as wins are concerned, momentum builders, this is as peak as you can get. This is a momentum builder. This takes the edge off of having to travel to 3 cities in 3 days. Granted, 2 of them are the same city. No one right now wants to see the Mets rolling in off of that kind of win coming into their building. I'm sure the Brewers would rather have faced the Braves at this point in time. I'm sure San Diego is thrilled that they're getting the Braves, particularly when Sale is not pitching in the series. So this is a rocket ship kind of win where the travel, the adrenaline can get the Mets through the next few days, despite probably being short-staffed. But it's just an overall great day. It's the kind of feeling we've been chasing for years now. It's just one of those things. I mean, Lindor with that home run, I mean, that was Piazza-like. I mean, that's the only way I can describe it. Met guys never come up that clutch. Except for Daniel Murphy having that surprise postseason run in 2015. Mets don't hit home runs like that, right? Like that doesn't happen for the Mets. And to come up bottom of the 9th, back's been hurt in the last few weeks. I mean, that is one of the biggest home runs, at least in Mets regular season history. That's up there with the Piazza home run as far as regular season history is concerned. And obviously that's a little different of a different emotional experience than what we went through. This is obviously just from a game standpoint and a standing standpoint. But of all the home runs the Mets have hit, this is at the minimum a top 5. This is probably one of the best postseason games I've ever lived through. I remember the big comeback against the Braves in 2000 on my mom's birthday of all things, where I begged her to keep the TV on. That was great, but that was in the middle of June. That was June 30th. The win against the Phillies, where they came back from 8 runs last year, that wasn't an elimination game. This was a win-in scenario. I don't think the Mets have ever had this kind of experience on a win-in scenario, and I think few teams in baseball have. So this is an all-time classic game. And up there, has to be up there as far as regular season. Postseason, we could go on for days on great postseason games on what's there. As far as a regular season baseball game, this has to be one of the all-time great games.
Circling back real quick, Mets finished 15th in team ERA.
Yes.
Ironically, the Braves finished first.
Yeah.
So.
And I'll tell you what, 15th, exactly in the middle of the pack. I mean, on paper, the Mets starting rotation was probably the worst starting rotation on paper for the Mets in about 20 years, maybe since 2004. Because the Mets, at least even when they had bad teams in like those early 2010s, I mean, they always had good pitching. That was the one thing the Mets always had. Usually it was the offense and the bullpen that was bad. But on paper, this was the worst Mets rotation in 20 years. But that's why you play the game of baseball. Things happen. And I have to give Stearns ton of credit for getting these guys, lower cost guys on bargain deals, taking a gamble on guys on some 1-year deals. Give credit to the whole, the Mets pitching staff, obviously, for executing. The Mets system, I know that there were all the talk about, the new Mets pitching lab. Well, I think the pitching lab did a pretty good job shaping us up this rotation. I think the biggest thing that hurt the Mets from a pitching standpoint, and the ERAs would have been much lower across the board, the biggest issue is the walks. They had the 3rd most walks in baseball as a pitching staff. Thankfully, they also had the 5th most strikeouts. So even though they're getting guys on, they're able to get out a lot of those innings by striking out. So that does have to clean up, though, as we enter the playoffs. But I got to tell you what, I did not see this happening. The fact that we are sitting here the last day of September and we're previewing baseball for both New York teams has me absolutely ecstatic. And think of the point of view real quick on this Mets team. If that end of May trajectory continued and the Mets ended up finishing 20 games under 500 or more, all of a sudden you're coming into this offseason talking about blowing the whole thing up. And are any of these prospects going to stick? All of these veteran guys that you got around, like Lindor, what are you going to do with him? All of those conversations have completely shifted. So now it's like, well, you're a playoff team. You made the playoffs. And now the offseason is completely different because now it's about building onto this core. Lindor has proven he is absolutely worth the contract. He's played well above the I forget the exact metric, but someone showed this money metric, and Lindor's played well above the money.
Big Fangraphs does that,
Yeah, something like that. So you're talking about a situation now where you're thinking about the team being in a terrible spot and a turning point season to now being a build upon it. What pieces could we add? And the Mets have the most payroll coming off the books this offseason. I mean, they have over $100 million in payroll.
173 coming.
Unbelievable. Forget about over 100. They have almost 200 million in payroll. So
173.
Should be between all of that money being available, plus the emergence of some of these young players like Vientos. I mean, he's a staple for this lineup going into next year. Acuna, I mean, he was red hot down the stretch. Let's see if he cracks our Bulls-Bears later in the show. That's a piece you build with next year, plus some other pieces. It's going to be a fun offseason for the New York Mets, but we're not talking offseason yet because we got postseason.
I just want to throw out a couple of quick points. First of all, special day for New York. Being a Yankee fan, and I don't know if Tom feels the same way here. I'm glad the Mets made it this far. It's great for the city to see both the Mets and the Yankees back in the playoffs together. The Mets has just been a crazy story all year long. The Yankees, ebbs and flows, and we'll get into the Yankees a little bit, outlasted the Orioles in their division. But there was something special that went down, and I know a lot of people in the community here that have joined us on chat come through the Yankees Twitter community, but also have affiliation with the Mets Twitter community as well. And there was an individual from the Mets Twitter community by the name of Elliot, huge Mets fan, huge space goer, host, who passed away last month, left the family behind. But one of the things that he had called all season long from the very beginning, even when the Mets were down low, was 89 wins. His saying, he was a huge LA Knight WWE fan, 89 wins. Yeah. And yet, here we are in a moment of like divine intervention. The Mets win their 89th game, the best game of the season. The Mets are going to the playoffs. I mean, how cool is that? It's just stuff like that. It makes you love the game even more. And shout out to Elliot and his family. And we're thinking and praying for them through still a difficult time. But hopefully a day like today put a smile on their face. And there it is, 89-73. And the Mets are headed to the postseason. I do have one question, though, for Corey and Joe specifically.
Yep.
Carlos Mendoza, NL Manager of the Year?
Yes.
I think he should be based on the expectations for that. Now, there's like 3 candidates. Snicker, obviously, is a candidate because they still made the playoffs and they lost their all-star third baseman.
Their entire team.
MVP outfielder. They've had an unbelievable amount of injuries this whole year. He's obviously a candidate out in Milwaukee. His name escapes me at the moment. He's certainly a candidate for manager. Padres manager. I'm losing track of all the names right now. He's certainly a candidate. So I think those are the top three. There are probably 3 or 4 guys that are probably being considered. But Mendoza, I wouldn't be surprised if he won the award solely based off of these last two, this game today. I mean, think about it. If you're a writer,
you can't win it because of the game today. That's
you're a writer. You're waiting to fill out your ballots, but it's a possibility. Some of the writers are like, well, let's see. Snicker and Mendoza are both fighting for a playoff spot. Let's see which one.
I don't think this specific. I mean, the Mets making the playoffs gives him. I'm not saying he shouldn't win the award, but he didn't.
Corey, what are your thoughts
today?
Yeah, no, I say yes. And I mean, not only from an expectation standpoint, because the vast majority, Joe, could give you credit because you had them, but the vast majority of people did not have the Mets in the playoffs. A lot of people didn't have the Mets as a 500 team. So that alone helps. But look at the turnaround. I mean, your season it collapsed just to the point of full collapsing, and they bottomed out literally at the best time because they were able to right the ship and had enough runway to save it. The plane was crashing. The plane was about to crash, and Mendoza and the team pulled it up at just the right time to give them enough runway.
11 games under 500.
Unbelievable. To make up 11 games at that point, to me, Mendoza gets it. Again, a lot of
maybe you shouldn't have let them get 11 games under 500.
Well, I mean, that's tough. I mean, when you consider the fact that he's a rookie manager and your team has sunk to 11 games under 500, to keep the team together at that point, it's just unbelievable. Like that doesn't happen. And for San Diego, it was 500 all year, and then turn it on the second half of the season. They had lower expectations because they had traded Soto, but they had good players on that team. Milwaukee lost their president of baseball ops to the Mets. They lost their manager to the Cubs. A lot of people had written Milwaukee off. They lost their Cy Young candidate to Baltimore. So I think there's a very
closer for a good portion of the season as well.
Closer. I think there's a very big argument for the manager of Milwaukee. Again, his name is escaping me. They lost Yelich, and they only got better when they lost Yelich. So there's a very real argument for that. But when you talk about getting yourself off the mat, Pat Murphy, that's it. Thank you. When you talk about getting yourself off the mat, keeping your team on target, not losing focus, Mendoza, as a rookie manager, isn't expected to do that, and you'd have an argument for any of those guys.
Exactly.
Let's flip to the Yankees side.
Two last points with Mendoza that I have to give him credit for. First is with the organization, Mendoza and Stearns. Give them credit for playing the kids and playing the hot hands. I know Buck. I love Buck. Great person. My biggest criticism, he was deathly loyal to the veterans to the point where it cost him his job. So I give the Mets front office and Mendoza for doing that. And on top of that, too, Mendoza, I think he handles his emotions very well. He's composed when he has to be, and he shows emotion when he has to. Getting ejected the other night is a perfect example of that. So I really like how he handles emotions out there on the field.
I think you should also then give praise to the Yankees organization and Aaron Boone for grooming Mendoza for this. So you're welcome again.
Let's flip to the Yankee side of the house. Before we do that, let's get to some comments real quick. HO, first game was very good. Yes, it was. LA Yankee King. Seeing the Braves and Mets both celebrate on the field was cool. And then we have Kev Cruz over at NYYU. Shout out to Kev Cruz and the team over at New York Yankees Underground, New York October Baseball. Jason is Bobby Abreu. Thank you, Kev, for that. All right, let's get into the Yankees real quick. And obviously we gotta touch on the fact that the Yanks did outlast the Orioles in the division by a 3-game separation. So the Yankees finished 94-68, first in the AL East, and also first in the American League as well. Thanks to a bad weekend by the Cleveland Guardians. Yanks finished with first in OBP, OPS, runs scored, also home runs as well. It's not listed, but that should be made obvious with just Aaron Judge or Juan Soto's production alone. So, Thomas, the Yankees are AL East champions. We were through this so many times. Where how many times did those standings at the top flip? It's exactly what we kind of called throughout the year. I don't think we were expecting the Yankees to then all of a sudden grab a 6-game lead, but then the Orioles got a little bit hot at the very end, but the Yankees were still able to pull out the big victory on Thursday with Garrett Cole on the mound. Your thoughts, Tom?
Well, one of my thoughts, I was real annoyed. I went to the game on Wednesday, wanted to see them clinch the division, and they didn't. So that stunk. It stunk a lot. Did get the Jeter bobblehead, which was pretty sweet. But yeah, I don't know. The Orioles just kind of rolled over and died the second half of the year, and it made the Yankees like basically rolling over and dying not look as bad. It's weird. The Yankees are the 1 seed. Like, has there been a 1 seed that a fan base is like seemingly not had as much faith in as in the history of baseball? But hey, here we are, and I think some guys are clicking at the right time. The guys that you want to be clicking, and more on some of those guys later. Let's I don't know. I'm ready for the DS to start at this point. I was ready for the DS to start like the beginning of September. I was just kind of like, all right, we're just kind of meandering here. So I can't wait to roll the ball out there, see who we're gonna play and handle business. But I don't know. I'm ready. I'm ready to go.
Yeah. 100%. It's going to be interesting to see what team shows up. The Yankees definitely backed in at that end. We felt good after their
they won on Sunday, so they did. I mean, yeah, I know it was already over, but they did.
I mean, it was the first meaningless game of the season. It was a game 160. Took 161 games to finally have one meaningless game, but that's baseball season. But shout out to the Yankees for outlasting Baltimore. That was going to be a tough fight throughout the year. The Orioles are a good team. They got clobbered with injury. They're starting pitching, although they still have Burns and Eflin at the top. They're going to have questions on who is going to go those other games, especially now in this short series. Hopefully it doesn't go 3 games for them. Their offense seemed to click at the end too. You're starting to see again Santander, Henderson heat up, some of the kids in Kerstad. So the Orioles are going to be a fight. I know we're going to get more into it in our postseason predictions in short order. Real quick question, though. One of the big topics on Yankees Twitter is some of the internal competitions for roster spots. Mm-hmm. One, of course, and the only one I really want to talk about just now is left field between Alex Verdugo, Jason Dominguez, and hell, maybe even throw a Trent Grisham in that mix too. Who knows? Mm-hmm. But who, in your opinion, won that primary job going into October between those candidates?
I'll go first. And I'll let Tom go after. See what he thinks. I think it's Verdugo's. I think Dominguez has proved. Dominguez did not hit his way into the postseason roster, and B, Dominguez has proved that he cannot handle left field as a fielder, as a big leaguer. One of the problems with this Yankee team, and now Rizzo's gone down, one of the problems with this Yankee team is you have, of all the positions on the diamond, you have maybe 5 or 6 positions on the diamond where a player is playing technically out of position. You have a right fielder playing center field. You have a right fielder who really probably should be a DH in some way, shape, or form in Soto. He's not a great fielder. He's got a great arm. You have now Ben Rice is probably going to be your first baseman, who's by trade a catcher, who's going to be a first baseman. Torres shouldn't be playing any position. Volpe is okay at shortstop. You got a second baseman playing third base.
Volpe's okay. Volpe, what do you mean Volpe is okay at shortstop defensively?
He's led the league in errors the last 2 seasons.
Joe, that doesn't even matter because he's going to be the shortstop going into the biggest games.
I got plenty of issues with Volpe. Volpe defensively. I mean, come on, just stop it, Joe.
You cannot afford to go into October with a left fielder who can't catch a fly ball. That's basically the premise here. Dominguez cannot be, as a rookie, without proving they can catch a fly ball in left field, cannot be your left fielder. Plain and simple. And he hasn't hit himself into that position.
Yeah, no, I'll say from my standpoint, if we discussed this 2-3 weeks ago, I mean, I was clamoring that Jason Dominguez should have been up and starting every game, and ultimately then a few days after, sure enough, he was. But ultimately, though, I do have to go with Verdugo in this instance. Dominguez, again, great player. I think he's going to be a solid player for the Yankees for a long time. But in the short sample size of September, didn't really cut it. He only had a 617 OPS, in this brief time, average under 200. I'm not saying Verdugo was a silver slugger. He wasn't by any means, but in this case, I do think at least he's played left field pretty much all season. And he's got decent postseason numbers, Verdugo, too. He's been there before. I mean, he's got an 835 OPS in his career in the postseason. So I think the way they end up handling that outfield spot in left, Verdugo, in my opinion, should get the first crack. Now, all of a sudden, if you're in your second or third series in the playoffs and he's just not cutting it and he's hitting 100 throughout the whole playoffs, then maybe then you change it up, make a switch. I don't think it's going to be Grisham. Grisham will, base running, outfield, whatever, defensive replacement, whatever. It really is between Verdugo and Dominguez. I give Verdugo the first shot out of it because of his experience. He's been there before. He's done it before. But if he does struggle in the first couple of series, I won't be shocked if they go to Dominguez to try to get a little bit of a spark with the bat.
It absolutely should be Dominguez. He has hit into some bad luck in the limited time has been up. He has hit some absolute rockets right at fielders. I know he hit 2 balls the game I was there Wednesday that were just absolute piss missiles, but hit him right at the center fielder and right at the right fielder. Bad luck there. I understand he dropped that ball. Again, I was there and I saw it. I was really annoyed with that. But his bat is the potential to be a game changer, where Verdugo's has been bad all year. And frankly, I would have Grisham over Verdugo for that second spot. I would have Dominguez starting games, and then if you want to defensive replace him, I would defensive replace him with Grisham, who's a better fielder than Verdugo, and frankly is a better hitter than Verdugo. Verdugo can be there still, fine. But Dominguez's bat, this team, we talk about it all season. It's Judge and Soto. If one of those guys aren't hitting, you need other threats in the lineup and speed on the base paths and ways to make things happen. And Dominguez provides that, where Verdugo doesn't. Verdugo has been horrible batting this year, and he's been a decent defender. He's not even been a great defender.
But Dominguez hasn't proved that, though. He's batting 179.
It's in what?
Let me
cut it, because I do agree with Corey and Joe. I do think Verdugo has to outlast Dominguez for the spot. And again, Jason had his opportunity to try to show something with his bat, at least something where it's some semblance of the player we've seen in the minors all year, combined with the player we saw for an 8-game sample size in 2023. Unfortunately, Dominguez was just not given enough time to develop into that player, which is unfortunate. But the problem is, I can't sit here in October worrying about every single ball that's getting hit to left field, even how routine it is. So at this point, I'm taking Verdugo's glove and subsidizing that with, it's a bad batting average. It's a bad ground ball rate. But guess what? He's a number 8 or number 9 hitter doing number 8 or 9 hitter things at the end of the day. And I need his glove at this stage right now, because
he's not a good defender.
Batting average is not worth saving at this point.
He's a better defender than Dominguez.
He's a better defender than Dominguez, but guys, Alex Verdugo isn't like Brett Gardner in the outfield. Like he's not a great defender. Grisham's a better defender than if that's your issue, start Grisham.
But Dominguez is first of all, Grisham's going to start in center field. If you're starting Grisham, he has to play center field. He's a gold glove fielder. And
if you're going to start one of them over Dominguez,
and actually, this is crazy. Actually, I yelled at Joe, but Joe kind of made a good point too. Where in the field, if a ball is hit in play, where do you feel the most confident that play is going to be converted? So now I have to worry about left field as well, on top of everything else that I got to be worried about outside of maybe center field, because Judge does play a great center field.
Judge plays an okay center field. Judge is not playing great center field.
Listen, Judge is not
one position on the field.
He just doesn't have the range, but you're going to hold your breath on every ground ball at every position in the infield.
No, Joe, Volpe is not a liability defensively.
He's not great defensively.
Yes, he is.
No, he's not.
Yes, he is. He's great defensively.
He's not great defensively.
Yes, he is.
He's the best of the Yankees fielders.
He is great.
But Volpe has a tendency to mess up the routine play and make the spectacular play, which drives you nuts.
His baseball savant fielding value is 92. What other do you want to do outs above average? What do you want to roll with? Volpe is a good defender.
His arm value. Just curious.
But you're going to hold your breath on every ball hit to third base and second base. That's the reality of the situation. Ben Rice
outs
is
above average, 97th percentile.
Again, but he has the most shortstop errors in the league. At some point he can have these great metrics, but if you're not shorthanded and you're screwing up easy plays, you're gonna hold your breath a little bit. And again, Volpe is not the
funny thing about it is like you're basically doing the opposite end. We're not going to have to get into this of the Jeter argument where Jeter made all the plays, but then everyone always said that Jeter was the worst defender who ever stepped on a diamond. And now Volpe is making it. Just next.
All right, let's just move on. let's move on. We'll bring it more out to extra innings later on tonight. Sierra did pop in, so shout out to Sierra, the host of Extra Innings, and shout out to our guy Chris Dievis over at Yankees.
Now I'm really gonna come take your Woodford. You don't deserve it.
Shout out to Liberty, the Yankees, and the Mets on this Monday. Joe, let's talk about YouTube.
Yes, you can join us on YouTube. We are live on Instagram and X, but YouTube is our preferred platform. You can like, share, and subscribe and join the conversation for the full experience. We have 392 subscribers. We're trying to get to 400 and then 500. So if you can help us out and share it with a friend that might not be subscribed, we would really appreciate that. And again, it is our preferred venue because we can read your comments and interact with you during the show live. So we love to have you guys join us over on YouTube.
Yes, sir. It's the optimum way to listen to the show and enjoy it at its full capacity. And our chat kicks ass. So make sure to jump into the best chat here on YouTube, bar none. And speaking of that chat, shout out to William Crow. Joe didn't dilute that whiskey enough clearly. Shout out to Mr. Crow. All right, let's get into the New York Strike Exchange. We're not going to waste any further time. Let's get into the bed. And our bed is our Bears. And with our Bears is going to be Corey Favs. So, Corey, who are our Bears for the final bi-weekly edition of the NYSC? Bears edition.
And I'll tell you what, even though we're starting with Bears, it is a great week. So, we're saving the best for last. That's it. But listen, even though both New York teams are playoff bound, there are still some bad eggs out there in terms of performance. Right at the bottom and the top, ironically, too, are the Mets DHs and Jesse Winker and JD Martinez up top. Starting with Jesse Winker, 0 for 13 over the last 2-week period. 235 OPS, simply not going to get it done from a DH standpoint. You want the guy to hit, he ain't hitting. Marcus Stroman, again, he was there last week. He's here again this week. 9.95 ERA, 7 earned runs. Luis Hill making the jump from the a bull. It looks like he was the 5th bull last week, down to the Bears this week, number 3 spot. Not a good few weeks for Mr. Hill at 16 innings pitched, 6.19 ERA. So want to see those numbers improve as we shift to the postseason. Austin Wells in a very rough stretch here, 2 for 34. So he was well on the season, but not well the last few weeks. And then at the top is JD Martinez, the Mets' other DH. Again, same thing, 0.83 average. That's simply not going to get it done. This is guy brought in from power, give you some veteran pop off the bench, a DH, whatever you need him to do, but only a 310 OPS, no bueno.
Real quick, I'll talk about Luis Hill. It's going to be interesting because, you're looking at 2 of the AL Rookie of the Year finalists potentially on this Bears list in Wells and Hill. And I would assume Colton Cowser would have to be the 3rd. Mason Miller definitely makes an argument as well. But yeah, not a good way to end for Wells and Hill, but Hill especially. And Tom, I kind of want to know, if Nestor Cortez doesn't go down with his injury, does Hill even get a spot in the Yankees playoff rotation?
Yeah, I think he absolutely does. My vision for Hill in the postseason is he's the Game 3 starter, and especially in the DS, he's the Game 3 starter, and you basically have now Clark warming up immediately. And if it was the other situation, if Nestor was healthy, you would have had Nestor warming up immediately, because when Hill is on, he is about as unhittable as pitchers come, in this season. But there are times when he's very off, so he needs to have a quick hook. But if he's ready to go, like he's such a weapon that you want to let him start, but you just gotta have someone ready. I'd still have him in the rotation.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, go ahead, Joe. Sorry.
I was just going to touch on Hill. I mean, I think Hill's basically. I think he's going to probably win Rookie of the Year if I had to guess. He's been so valuable for the Yankees. I actually don't think Austin Wells finishes in the top 3. That's how bad his September has been. I think Miller and Cowser are going to be the other 2 finalists for that award. But Hill's biggest issue is the walk rate. He led the American League in walks, and that is an active issue with him. And it's something that I think if he fixes can make him an elite pitcher in this game, but that's clearly been an issue. But yeah, I'm going to touch on JD Martinez. JD Martinez was a big offseason acquisition for the Mets. He's a veteran. He's supposed to be an anchor in the middle of this lineup. He has been absolutely awful for them lately. And if it wasn't for the last 2 games where all of a sudden he started hitting, I think he's got 4 hits in the last 2 days. He would have been in danger of not seeing any postseason action. So the Mets, one of the biggest disappointments of this season for the Mets, and there are not many of them, has been JD Martinez this year.
Well, I will say about JD, though, just kind of preach a little bit of positivity on the Mets end. Yeah, he's been struggling. He's a back-to-back bull. He's essentially been the bull of the past month. Bull bear the past month. But one thing that I'm looking at right here that makes me think maybe it's calm before the storm. JD Martinez's career postseason numbers: 294 batting average, 10 homers, 31 RBIs. That's in 33 games in his postseason career. But who knows? Maybe this is just him calming it down before he locks it in for the biggest games of the year. So we'll see what JD has left in the tank.
And real quick on that JD point, because it's great that you bring that up, Rich. For those of you that remember, he had a quote back in March. I know he was one of the late signings with the Mets in the second half of spring training. And in his introductory press conference said he's addicted to the playoffs. He's been there multiple times. And once you get there, it's very addicting. So a lot of people said, well, you picked the wrong team. Or a lot of people said, oh, that's trade bait at the deadline. Well, he's in the playoffs in the Met uniform. So here we go.
Thomas, our final Bulls of the bi-weekly rankings. What do you got?
The King has returned. We'll get to him in a minute, but we'll start with Carlos Rodon in the 5th spot here. I think Rich and I alternated every other bi-weekly saying that Rodon would work his way into the Bulls list. And it's very happy to see that he's finally worked his way into the Bulls list with a very nice sparkling 1.59 ERA. Not a ton of innings, but also in a situation where they're kind of just getting your work in towards the end of the season for Mr. Rodon. Number 4, we have Jose Iglesias, Mr. OMG, 444 batting average. That's quite nice. 1.0 OPS, very nice as well. So a very well deserved spot for him. Garrett Cole, number 3, a very interesting. Although now looking at it, I guess the Boston game is not included here. The walk that was.
No, it was not. That was on September 14th. I was there. I would know if they lost.
Gotcha.
So this is in the 16th, 29th interval.
So I will hand up. I didn't put Cole on my list because I thought that game was still in there, and I thought it kind of muddied the stats. But hey, listen, he's still number 3 here. Yeah, listen, I'll own that. But a fantastic adding time for Cole there in the 3 spot. Probably should be the 2, maybe even the 1. Number 2, we have little Acuna here. Interesting that his stats are like kind of not necessarily worse than Jose Iglesias, but he's bringing the excitement and the the base running, all that kind of stuff. So Lil Acuna, number 2. And number 1, again, the King has returned. Aaron Judge is back, heating back up for the playoffs just the way we like it. 333 batting average, 1.3 OPS, 5 homers. Again, the King is back.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I will say this, and I'm going to cheat a little bit. I usually just address one, but I'm going to address the fact that two of the biggest pitchers in the Yankees rotation make this list and at a good time. They're at the stretch run here. To see Garrett and Rodon up there is big time. That's more than likely your game 1, game 2 starter in the first round of the playoffs. And it's big to get them going, especially Garrett. After coming off that Red Sox game, you really were worried about his confidence issues. I know we had a lot of back and forth on here after that, but
some of us were worried. Some of us were not
Garrett
worried.
has seemed to lock in, and Joe, I'm going to point this at you. I know it doesn't matter if you beat such and such team this time, but beating the Orioles on Thursday was big time for Garrett Cole.
Yeah, I mean, that was a big game. Believe it or not, I mean, the Orioles made a push to make the Yankees sweat a little bit, and that was a game that they had to win. They could not leave that Orioles series letting the division not be clinched. Now, it would have been an unbelievable collapse if that had happened, but Garrett Cole did what he did. I think Tyler McGill actually deserved a spot over Rodon. He had a better ERA, and we're not including today, obviously, but he did pitch another elimination game today. If we were including that, I think he would be on this list. And I would have actually switched Acuna and Iglesias. I actually had Iglesias number 1 over Judge, just simply because Judge has been high the whole year.
Because you're a clown.
We know Judge is great, but Iglesias had a 20-something game hitting streak to end the season. He has had big hit after big hit. I mean, 445 average. That's insane. And he plays a Gold Glove defense. So that was my.
It was a Gold Glove defense. Okay, we'll see.
But there were a lot of.
He's a defensive liability.
I think at least for mine with this list, it was actually pretty much exactly the par. I did have Acuna in the 2 spot and Iglesias in my 4 spot, and again, the numbers are so good for one. I mean, it's hard to beat that 444 average, and Iglesias, such an instrumental player for the Mets in this second half run. I gave it to Acuna more so for the expectation standpoint, where he's coming in and replaced Lindor for a week and a half in the most important week and a half of the season. And not only did he play well, he gave you the same production Lindor was giving you in the weeks leading up to his absence. So Acuna came in big moment after big moment. Each one of those 3 home runs was in a big spot. He brought an energy that Lindor seems to bring to the Mets. I know he hasn't really played much over the last couple of days since Lindor is back, and I'm very happy he is, because he had the biggest home run of the Mets season today. But he did a phenomenal job, and I'm very excited to see this infield going into next season between Lindor, the young Acuna, Jose Iglesias. I pray he's back on some sort of deal, because that's the type of guy who could find his way into that lineup 4 out of 7 days, despite not being a regular starter.
OMG. Candelita making the Bulls list for the first time in 2024 in the number 4 spot. And love to see what the rookie Acuna has been doing thus far for the Mets on the other side of the East River. But I will say this. So even though that does it for our bi-weekly NYSC rankings, that actually won't be the end of our Bulls Bears rankings for 2024. And we did this last year as well.
Oh man!
what a way to
Bears of the
Okay, he's back.
There he is.
Bottom 10 Bears of the year. See, listen, my Wi-Fi is a bear right now. It's acting up. And then
on Joe's
October
take on Volpe's defense is my number 1 bear.
Will be our top 10 Bulls of the year. So bottom 10 Bears of the year on October 14th. Top 10 Bulls of the year on October 28th. So the NYSC is not done, because we still have a full year of player rankings to go through as well. So that's gonna be a lot of fun as well. I wonder who's gonna be number 1 for the Bulls. That's gonna be a real mystery. But before we figure that out, Corey Favs, let's talk about Instagram.
Yeah, listen, if you want to go and have a fun time on the gram, we post all our graphics there, some meme reels, clips from the show, you name it, it's over there. Go ahead at Empire State of Baseball on Instagram and join our 5,200 plus subscribers following us over there. You can also follow us individually, myself at Corey Favs, Joe at JR Pugs, Rich at Rich J Rivera, and Tom at T Wospil. Again, all our archived segments are there. Meme reels, graphics from the show make its way on there. Graphics you don't see on the show make its way out there. So go ahead and check it out.
Thomas, how about X?
I thought you mean Twitter there. So yeah, follow us on Twitter and our 3,200 followers. ESB Podcast being the mothership of those accounts, but also you got the ESB NYM, which had just a real emotional roller coaster of tweets going on today. and ESPNYY, which was pretty silent because the Yankees didn't have to worry about playing today. Check us out on all those accounts. You also can follow us individually. Corey at G Gory, Joe at JR Pug, Rich at Rich J Rivera. You can follow me at T Wospil.
Yes, sir. Let's get to some shout outs real quick, and then we're going to get to postseason predictions. Hitman over here. What's good, ESB fam? Shout out to Hitman. Hope all is well on your side. This bullet sucks, according to Sierra. Why? Because Harrison Bader wasn't on it? Because Gleyber Torres wasn't on it? Now, Gleyber Torres, however, I feel like Gleyber Torres had to get a couple votes there, Corey. Did that happen?
I know I voted for Gleyber in one of my spots.
Gleyber got a vote.
I will say,
and Luke Weaver, future.
I voted for Luke Weaver. Luke Weaver was on my bull list.
It was close. I think the problem was there were 4 eligible stars who have just been liked out.
What a frame to freeze on. All right. Well, listen, we got more on the NYSC in a couple of weeks' time for the top 10, bottom 10. But let's talk about what's to come. The actual centerpiece rather of the baseball season, and that is, of course, the postseason. So let's get into it. Just like we've done the last couple of years, we'll run through our brackets now that they're fully updated, finalized. We'll start things off with Corey, and then we're gonna go to Joe, Tom, and then I'll wrap with my bracket. So Corey, Favs, take it away. Let's take a look at your postseason picture.
And this is going to be a bracket that New York fans are absolutely appalled with. This is the anti-New York draft. Lord. And again, just talking through a little bit, I am extremely pumped. The Mets are in the playoffs. I did not expect this. I am ecstatic. Regardless, the Mets could lose the next 2 games. It's still a successful season when it's all said and done. But Milwaukee's had their number all year. I think the Mets are 1-5, I think, against the Brewers this year. So I think it was a very emotional roller coaster season. Tom, to your point also before, Edwin Diaz probably not available tomorrow. And then again, who knows? In a big game, they might just say, F it, let's do it. But I'm going to go with the Brewers. I think that game does go to a 3rd game set. But I have the Brewers out there taking that wild card round. Same thing. The team that won today, the Atlanta Braves, I have them losing to San Diego Padres. The Padres, I think, have been playing a lot better than a wild card team over the last month of the season. And when it was at one point, it was a 4-team race between the Padres, the Braves, the Mets, and the Brewers. The Diamondbacks for that last couple of playoff spots. But the Padres never really made it a debate. They constantly maintained a 2, 3, 4-game lead, and they pretty much took it easily within the last 2 weeks. On the AL side, I got the Astros taking over the Tigers. Again, Tigers, very fun story. Tom and Joe both had them making the playoffs as division leaders, but fun story nonetheless. I am going with the more experienced Astros in that round. And then in the last AL wildcard round, again, 2 fun teams. I think it'll be a good game, but I'm going to go with the Royals. I just think they're the hotter team coming in. The Orioles, something was off in September. They really cooled off in the month of September. I do think they got some great players. They got one of the best pitchers, but I'm going to go with the Royals. I just think there's more excitement around that team right now.
Well, let's finish out the bracket. We'll just go bracket to bracket since everything's up there already. So, just the quick review till we get to the proverbial dreaded anti-New York finals. But I know. Obviously, let's take a look at what you got.
Yeah, and then just continue it off. We'll start off with the NL side. I got the Phillies over the Brewers. At this point, it's just really a matter of who's the better team. The Phillies are the better team. And at the bottom, even though the Dodgers have the record, I know they're beat up in the rotation. I mean, it seems like every week another big starter is going down for the Dodgers. Now, their offense can hit with absolutely anybody. They got MVPs up and down that lineup. I just think the Padres are the hotter team right now, so I'm going with the Padres in the NLDS. And then in that, I'll just go with the NLCS, wrap up the NL. I got the Phillies over the Padres. Again, it's really just a case of the better team and the team who's just been there. A little bit of recency bias, but again, prove me wrong until until a team proves me wrong. I'm going to go with the recency bias of the Phillies. Similarly, on the left-hand side, recency bias for the Astros. I have them over the Guardians. Guardians, phenomenal story. A lot of people didn't necessarily have them as a playoff team. They ended up winning the AL Central, but I'm going the recency bias with the Astros. Yankees over Royals. Again, Royals a very fun team. Yankees are the better team. I'm going with the Yankees. And until the Yankees exercise the year, they proved me wrong. They exercise those demons and get past them. Again, until proven wrong, I'll go with the Astros. And then you got the head-to-head Astros-Phillies. I think this would be a good series. I actually think Yankees-Astros would be the most fun series in this bracket. But I think Houston and Philly would be another fun World Series with the Astros on top.
That would be such a killer for, once again, the Stros and Yankees meet and the Stros take the victory. But that's just been the tale of the tape for, the last few postseason appearances. The Astros have just simply owned the New York Yankees at this stage of the season. So you got the Astros over the Phillies, which I believe, wasn't that the same matchup for what was it, 22?
Yep, 22. Same result.
There you go. All right, Corey, very good stuff here. Joe, we'll go to you. Let's take a look at your full bracket here for the postseason.
Yeah, so not all that dissimilar to Corey's, maybe a couple spots. I know Corey is going for the reverse jinx on the Mets. I know that's what he's doing. But listen, I'll start with the AL side. Listen, Tigers coming in hot. They got Scooble for one game. But to me, they've spent their powder. They're not going to have the offensive capability to keep up with the Astros. The Astros can go 3 deep in the rotation that the Tigers just cannot. And you can't rely on bullpen games in October and be successful, at least in my mind, long term. Yordan Alvarez did run and take hacks today. I believe he is going to play. And when you look at this whole bracket, if you had an at bat with your life on the line, the top 3 guys are all on the Astros, regardless of regular season MVPs, whatever. If you got an at bat, it's the Astros. So until somebody offs the Astros, at least in the AL side, I have to go with that. Same with Cleveland. Cleveland, I just don't think they have the offensive firepower to compete. Their starting pitching is interesting. Their bullpen is absolutely unbelievable. But they're going to have a week off. They got to ride the momentum. A lot of what Cleveland has done has been overinflated by that weird division, at least in my mind. Bottom of the bracket, Royals kind of backed in. You asked me a week ago, I thought the Royals were dangerous. I don't like the Royals now. I think there's not enough there. I think the Baltimore actually woke up from the Yankees series. Taking 2 out of 3 from the Yankees, I think actually sparked Baltimore a little bit. They showed a semblance of the team that they're supposed to be in the last week of the season. I think Baltimore Yankees is going to go 7 games. And if I'm the Yankees, there are 2 teams I don't want to see. I don't want to see Houston. I don't want to see Baltimore.
That'd be incredible to go 7 games in a 5-game series. That would be truly record-breaking stuff.
That's a 5-game series. I'm sorry.
Should be
5-game series. But Baltimore is extremely dangerous. They're the only team aside from Houston on this bracket that are not scared of the Yankees whatsoever. That would be my only nervousness with the Yankees. But I do have the Yankees coming out 3-2 on that series. And then it's going to be back to the same old. It's Houston versus New York. And until I see from the Yankees they can beat Houston, this is a 4-1 series. To me, Houston rolls through the Yankees in that one, I think, on the way to the World Series. On the NL side, Mets are riding high. They exercise the demons in the Braves. They're going back to Milwaukee. They know that Milwaukee's owned them all year. I think they get through Milwaukee and go to the Phillies. Again, similar to the other side, the Phillies do not want to see the Mets. The Mets have handled them. They've played well in Citizens Bank Ballpark. The last 7 games the Mets and the Phillies played just 2 weeks ago, the Mets were 4-3 against them. It's a 7-game series. The Mets squeaked by, but I'm telling you, that's going to be a fun 5-game series. I'm sorry, 3-2. That's going to be a fun series. Bottom of the bracket, sales out for the Braves. Braves are done. They're dead stick in the water. They lost the worst possible loss of the year. First game, even though they got in the playoffs, rolling over a team that didn't try. I have no faith in them. San Diego's hot. San Diego has the pitching. They have the hitting. I like San Diego. And here's the difference between San Diego and everybody else. San Diego has some karma on their side. They traded Soto away. They've had bad luck. They've been supposed to win for so long. This is the first year they're coming in under the radar. They have karma on their side this year, and I like that. They've done everything. By the way, the other thing with the Phillies are usually the wild card team coming into the series last few years. They are now on the bye. Let's see how they handle that. And I don't like the Dodgers. Dodgers pitching is a mess. Walker Buehler is your game 3 starter. He's got 5.5 ERA this year. You kidding me with that? Yamamoto hasn't proved they can pitch out of the 5th inning so far this year. I like San Diego. I think they're going to ride that momentum. I think they win a 6-7 game series in the World Series against Houston. In a classic World Series, I think.
Something different too. Something we haven't seen. That's a first time matchup for the World Series. Padres, Astros there. Pods taking the win for their first World Series championship, I believe, in their franchise. So there you go. All right, Joe. Padres taking that one. Thomas, let's go to you. How about your bracket?
Let's go to me. And listen, I'm just gonna get ahead of things. You got to believe in something, boys. You got to believe in something. So we'll start on the NL side, though. I do have the Mets getting over the Brewers in that first round. I think the Mets they are riding high, but I think they're a bit of a war of attrition will come to them shortly. San Diego, I think all of us have San Diego rolling, which means they're definitely going to lose in the wild card round. But I gotta say, everything's been said about San Diego. They got dangerous starters. They got dangerous bullpen. They got bats that could scare you. So I have them moving on. A lot again stuff we've been saying about them against the Dodgers. There, I think that the Padres are just they're poised to make that move and to beat the Dodgers. And the Dodgers always choke things away in the playoffs. So let's just get it over with early for them. Top of the bracket, the NL. I think this is where the war of attrition just hits the Mets. I think it's going to take 3 games to beat the Brewers. And then I think it's going to be just a tough matchup against a team that's been able to rest some, kind of get right. And I know the Mets, like you said, Joe, did win the 7-game series in theory against the Phillies this month. That was a situation where the Mets were playing for everything, and the Phillies were really on cruise control. I don't think the Phillies were throwing their A stuff, their A game plans and all that kind of stuff. I think it was almost more of a scouting mission for them. And I think they get them there. And then I also have the Padres getting to the World Series over the Phillies. It just seems like it's, hey, why not this year? I do like the idea that, they traded Soto, but they brought in all this other talent to the team while they still have superstars everywhere. Let's have the Padres get in. Go over to the AL side. Again, we saying a lot of the stuff already, but Scooble's be good for possibly one win against the Astros, but the problem is he can't pitch 3 games. So I think the Astros can outlast him there in the first round. KC, Baltimore, 2 teams that really, I think Baltimore played a little bit better at the end. But yeah, KC kind of backed in. Baltimore hasn't been playing great. So that I could see that series going 3 as well. Yankees then getting the Royals, and there's some matchup things that the Yankees don't do well with the Royals, especially they have 2 very good left-handed starting pitchers, and the Yankees have been horrible against lefties this year, but I just kind of see them overcoming that. Astros over Cleveland, same kind of stuff. The Astros have a lot of the experience. Cleveland has, some experience as well, but I just think the Astros are ready to take out Cleveland there. And this is where we get to the ALCS, and I said it a few weeks ago that I think the Yankees need this ALCS. I think now not everyone on this team was there since 2017 or even 2019. But guys like Judge and Glaber and Stanton, I think getting past Houston, I think the Yankees need to get past Houston just psychologically to kind of get to the mountaintop. And listen, fool me once, shame on you. And I guess this is maybe like a fool me 4 times if I'm saying the Yankees are going to beat the Astros. But I said you got to believe in something. Got to hope that they can get it done. I think the Yankees can beat Houston. I think Houston's going to take a lot to beat Cleveland. I think the Yankees are going to hopefully kind of get past KC easier and be set up better. And then we get a rematch of the 1998 World Series against the Padres. I don't think the Yankees are going to sweep them. This is not the 98 Yankees, but I do think that the Yankees are ready for this moment. They have the starting pitching ready to go. You have to feel great with Cole. Rodon's been better. I think there's some other good starting options. If Heel can be electric, you got Schmidt in there as well. I think the Yankees have the pitching. I think they can have the hitting to get it done. Well, let's have a parade. Let's have a parade in New York, and let's make Tom happy.
Oh, I would love that. So we had Philly. So we had Phillies, Astros. We had Astros, Padres. We had Padres, Yankees. So I think it's only right to mix in the final probable out of all that, and let's revisit 2009 altogether. Yankees, Phillies to the end. Now, listen, Tom and I's bracket are actually absolutely similar, with the exception of the World Series matchup there. And yes, I absolutely agree with you. I think if the Yankees get over the hump of Houston, I think the Yankees will win the World Series. I actually think to the point where if the Yankees go the distance here, even if it's a 7-game set, the Yankees have so much momentum that they actually may sweep their opponent in the World Series. That's how good, that's how big and monumental a victory over Houston to finally get over that momentum. That's only its own World Series right there. So I am going to ride high. I am going to buy stock into my own team because I never do that on this show. So I am going to go with the Yankees over the Phillies. We are going to revisit 2009. We are going to go down the Canyon of Heroes. And listen, I gave the Mets a victory over the Milwaukee Brewers. I gave them that. But I'm going to give the Yankees the World Series championship at the end of the day. And listen, at the end of the day, guys, it's going to be a tough. It's going to be.
I hear the train. It sounds like the subway is ready. I don't know who that was, but I heard it.
But I will say this: if the Yankees can't get over that hump in that ALCS, they are going to be set back for a while. Especially if they're unable to bring in the proper people to line them up for the next few years. And maybe the proper people, Soto, maybe it's not. Maybe it's just a combination of players they go without a plan B. But if the Yankees can't get over the Astros and can't get to the mountaintop, I'm telling you right now, I don't think they're going to have a shot in hell for another number of years before this opportunity comes. I really do think this is it. This is their last chance to achieve it.
Boone better hope he gets out of the DS. If the Yankees do not get out of the ALDS, there might be clean house.
I think if that's the case, I think they kind of have to. And I've defended Boone for a long time. I think it's at that point, it's just like you got to change something. Something has to change at that point. Yeah. So I agree. I think actually, honestly, if they lose the ALCS, I think it's just like, listen, something has to change. No, I don't think they will if they get to the ALCS, but I think they should.
It depends how, right? If you lose 4-1 to Houston,
yeah, I mean, yeah. Listen,
it's clean house.
Guys get hurt, and
if you lose a game 7 on an Alvarez bomb in the 9th, like, I mean, it is what it is. You kind of chalk it up to random, but this is a huge series. And I tell you what, Rich out on the farthest limb picking the top 2 seeds to make the World Series.
No, incorrect. Dodgers are top seed.
That's the furthest limb you could have gone. They are the top 2 seeds.
No.
Well, don't forget.
Dodgers. I'm sorry, Dodgers the top.
Yeah.
The show continues to just.
Well, that means the Yankees are going to win on a walk-off hit, right, Rich? A walk-off hit for the Yankees. Bold prediction.
Listen, don't make me dream these kind of dreams.
You'll I mean, like, pull back the curtain. Corey and I don't live like crazy far from each other, like miles wise. If that happens, Corey would hear me screaming, running through. I would meet neighbors that they wouldn't even know that I've never met before.
There was a part of me that really
I'd be a problem. I
tell you right now, there's a part of me that was going to do it. I was like so close to making it a Subway Series too, just for the sake of conversation. I think that would have been absolutely wild. But hey,
I was a menace in 09 running around my college campus. I'll tear this. Oh my God!
Talk about good views for the show too. If that happens, oh my God,
we might be filling out host seats by the end of that series. Let's talk about TikTok real quick. Make sure you give us a follow. Empire State of Baseball. Currently, right now, I've been running a couple of different recurring bits as much as I could. The Rivera Rewind being one. When the Yankees play these postseason games, you're definitely going to see a couple of post-game recaps and the pinstripe preview, which we preview an upcoming series, talk about the probables, and I give you my prediction. And hopefully we'll get some more Mets contact worked in there. But it's going to be a work in progress throughout the offseason. But give us a follow on TikTok anyway at Empire State of Baseball. All right, let's get to the game because it's now down to the final few weeks of the ESP games. Joe in third place now after taking 2 points last week. So there's 2 more points to grab for tonight. It is Guess the Graph. So let's get to Corey Favs with the first ball of Guess the Graph. Corey, go ahead.
All right. So for this one, it's a player who was with the Mets, not too long. He was with the Mets for 2 years. Had himself a decent career, 12 years in the game of baseball. Was a coach after he retired. So, give everyone a chance to do a couple rounds of guesses, and then maybe I'll throw in another hint or two.
Chris Young.
It is not Chris Young.
Guess.
Let me.
It looks so. It's not a guess. It looks like Carlos Delgado, but I'm not going to guess Carlos Delgado.
Yeah, played more than 12 years.
And I feel like he'd have a little bit of a better run with the Mets than just an average.
Like it looks exactly like it, but it doesn't fit the resume at all.
Yeah.
So
no, we're not going to count that for you. Check swing. Did he go? No.
Well, you said 12 years?
12 years.
With the Mets?
No, 12 years in his career, too, with the
12
Mets.
years in his career. Okay.
12 years.
Richard Hidalgo.
It is not Hidalgo. So 1 for Rich, 1 for Joe.
I don't think that's an R. I'm still seeing a C.
Not looking at the chat.
If it's not a C, this is gonna be just the all-time, just like joke. I will say that, which you can't blame Corey for, but my God, that is the most C-looking C I've ever
crazy
seen
with some of their signatures. So,
Chad Bradford.
It is not Chad Bradford.
Good guess.
So one across the board.
He was a Met at one point, right? Then
he was a Met. I wish they re-signed him because he was one of their best relievers that year.
Chili Davis.
Not Chili Davis. So we got 2,
I don't even know if he was a
1,
Met.
1. I'll give one more hint after we get another K or 2.
I'm gonna hold until Joe or Tom go, or if I'm 100%.
I'm drawing blanks on names.
It's like another player, but I just don't.
I'm literally just running through the names that start with C, just thinking, were these people Mets? And again, it's gonna end up being like Adam.
Hey,
it's gonna be like a not be that.
You didn't go to the well, did you? You didn't go to Chris Capuano.
It is not Chris Capuano. That would have been something going to Capuano.
If anybody was going to do that, you would do that.
That would be hysterical.
Would have loved.
Yeah, I'll give the last hint. It's a positional player. Retired he played his last full season in 2011. I'm not saying if it was for the Mets or not, but he retired after the 2011 season. And then again, like I said before, went into coaching a little thereafter. So Tom's got 2. Rich and Joe have 1 left.
It's a coach.
No, doesn't look like it. Corey, how's the chat looking? Chat get any correct guesses?
Corey's the name I haven't thought about. Let's think.
I do like the chat.
Corey Hart.
Guesses. Not Corey Hart. The chat is interesting, but not correct. I do like the guesses.
Tom, that was a guess there? Corey Hart?
Sure.
I think he was a Met for a portion of the season.
Listen, you said Corey, I'm thinking of C names, and that was the first C name that came to my mind. I don't think I'm getting this. I mean, he clearly wore number 5. Right, like that's a 5 at the end of that. But
and I did happen to check the
not David Wright, so I don't know.
Yeah, he didn't wear 5 with the Mets.
He did not wear 5 with the Mets. That's the one giveaway. Correct.
So then this could be a pop. This could be a player, man. I mean, 12 years in the bigs.
He played with Wright.
Had to be a starting player for a good amount of time. Corey's dusting off his camera.
I know. I bumped my computer and now it's shaking around.
Let's see.
Last guess is across the board. 30 seconds, and we
say
wrap
it was
this
an
up.
infielder.
I said position player.
Position player.
As I continue to try to get my
Carlos Quentin.
Not Carlos Quentin.
That's a good guess.
I don't think he was a Met.
15 seconds.
I'm gonna say Carlos Santana.
Not Santana. And Joe, last 10 seconds here.
Joe, a chance to pull away.
That was a real sword of a strikeout.
Corey with one guess, or Corey will take the point.
Carlos Lee.
Not Carlos Lee. It is Chris Woodward.
What?
Chris Woodward.
Yeah.
W.
It looks like a W. Now that it looks like a W, but I couldn't think of a. Yeah.
It's Chris Woodward. Went into coaching. I mean, after a couple of years, he switched around a little bit, and ironically was fired as Rangers manager the year before they won the World Series.
Wow!
So that was as we go into the playoffs, and he was a Met in the Mets 06 playoff run.
We had a couple guesses in the chat, none of it which were correct. Clint Hurdle, Rockies GM, Cleon Jones, who was a member of the Mets, and there is Corey Hart guess as well. I wear my sunglasses at night. All right, let's get to the last one here. Thomas has the ball. I mean, this is apropos. This is Thomas's baby, this game. So let's take a look at his order.
Actually, not a ball. Oh, you put it on a ball. Okay, look at you.
Yeah, this is what happens when you're an expert producer.
I will say this right now.
He didn't even send me a ball, folks. He didn't even send me a ball. He sent me just a signature, and I had to superimpose it on a ball.
You literally didn't. The game is not called Guess the Graph on a Ball. It's called Guess the Graph. I will say real quick, this is not a former Met or Yankee. I'm just saying that.
Whoa.
Not a former Met or Yankee.
No.
So I'm going to throw out. This is not my guess. After that clue, but I was going to say Qingming Wang because it looks like a G or something at the end and the C up front, but it's not Qingming Wang. So that's
it's a player that everyone's familiar with.
Chipper Jones.
It is Chipper Jones. It was
wow.
This was
bringing out a Chipper Jones when the Mets are fighting for their life.
This was my plan if the Mets had lost a doubleheader, and I threw a Chipper Jones autograph. The autograph came from I have an autographed Chipper Jones book. So that's where it is an autograph that I own.
I was going to say only Corey Favs would have got this one, but doesn't that look like a Chris Piazza autograph ball? I don't know.
Man, my plan was ruined though after they didn't win that first game. But boy, I think if the Braves would have swept today, Joe would have hit a new level of grid by me pulling out the Chipper Jones ball or Chipper Jones.
Here's a surprise for you all. We actually will have a third ball that I'm going to present right now, but I'm not going to give a point to anybody on it. Okay. But here's the third ball.
I have this exact ball in my showcase. R.I.P. to Mr. Pete
R.I.P. Pete Rose is sorry. Oh, here we go. Sorry, I bet on baseball. Pete Rose, who passed away today at the age of 83. The hit king, and look, there's another Pete Rose ball.
Maybe he should say, "Sorry, I was a pedophile." Maybe that could be what he wrote on the ball instead.
Jesus.
Well, I'm sorry.
He's not even cold yet.
Well, I mean, listen.
That's never been proved.
Google it, and you could draw your own conclusions. I'll draw mine.
I don't think that's the controversy most people would touch on right there, but still, legendary baseball player, not probably the greatest non-Hall of Famer outside of Barry Bonds. That is Pete Rose, who passed away today shortly before we went on the air. So rest in peace to Pete Rose, regardless of how you feel about him and what he did throughout his life career. But I don't know, Joe, Corey, if you want to have a couple words on Pete Rose.
No, one of the most fascinating figures in baseball. I would be willing to say that if you ask 50 people, they'd have 50 different opinions on Rose. Tom being one of them, myself being another. All-time hit king. His mark on baseball is quite extensive, at least from the record book standpoint. And one of the all-time, I guess, could have been technically. He could have been recognized as one of the greatest players of all time in the Hall of Fame officially by baseball. He could have been celebrated, and because of the decisions he made in his life, no one else, him, he is not in the Hall of Fame. Nor do I think he ever be in the Hall of Fame. But I think it's a cautionary tale that you can be the greatest person in the world. You can be an individual that is also flawed. So you can be a hero on the field. You can be a flawed person off the field. And it's how you choose to live your life that ultimately decides how you are remembered. And unfortunately, in a day where Pete Rose has passed, that is part of the conversation. The way he has chosen to live his life is part of his legacy, and it is a tale for all those coming in baseball that you are in control of how you are remembered. You can be a generational player, you can be a generational talent, you can be an all-time great. But if you make the wrong decisions, that can be taken away from you as easily as anything.
Yep.
So rest in peace, Pete Rose.
Yeah, exactly right. And I always remember the story. My mom always tell me about the fight between Rose and Buddy Harrelson. My mom's a huge Buddy Harrelson fan, and ironically, for wrong reasons, they passed away the same year. Buddy Harrelson was back in January, and Rose today. So, it's crazy how baseball comes full circle sometimes.
Yeah. It is. So rest in peace, Pete Rose, the hit king, passing away at the age of 83. So from that, we can touch more on Pete Rose and his career and a lot of the good things that happened also with October baseball coming up and starting tomorrow on Extra Innings. Make sure to tune in. Yeah, the time says 9:15. Unless we get to the DeLorean, I don't think it's going to be possible to start 9:15. So we'll get started at 9:30 p.m. Eastern over on X, and make sure to join us there. I'll be there. Sierra, maybe Joe, maybe Corey, maybe Tom. We'll see. Episode 105 of Empire State of Baseball will be back next week. Currently, and I will say this, currently scheduled for Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern time. But I know how the scheduling is going to go down with postseason. It's going to get all wild. So just stay tuned with us because there may be changes week to week depending on if the Mets are playing, Yankees playing. I just don't think it makes sense for us to go live during one of those postseason games. So we'll have to figure it out. So just stay tuned with us. Currently, right now, we still have it for our regularly scheduled Monday at 7 p.m. next week, but that may change by the time we get there. But that'll do it for tonight's episode of Empire State of Baseball. So we will see you here next week. Let's take it around the room. Corey to Joe to Tom with our last licks. Go ahead, Corey.
Just want to thank the New York Mets and specifically Francisco Lindor for that huge home run today. Mets are playoff bound, Yankees playoff bound. So we have playoff baseball as the SB continues into the postseason.
Thank you, both.
Yeah, what a wild ride. I'm ready. Hopefully be ready tomorrow at 5:00 for it to continue. Just an unbelievable run by the Mets right now, and we're gonna keep it rolling, boys. Keep it rolling.
Yankees get right, get healthy, get themselves lined up, and let's just win one series at a time.
I know we didn't even get into the Anthony Rizzo stuff, but more on Extra Innings, I guess. Well, let's close this damn thing down. Empire State of Baseball 104 in the books. The Yankees and Mets are playoff bound. Kicks off tomorrow. We're already turning the calendar. Wake me up when September ends. October 1st, here we are. Take care, folks.